Hi everyone, and thank you for joining the Cloud Takeaways of March 2023. I'm your host for today. I'm Mike van der Graag, Microsoft MVP and CTO at a company called 350 in the Netherlands. And we have some amazing things for you today. Basically, we have an amazing speaker lined up that will tell you everything about governance in the Microsoft platform. But first, let me do some small introduction. So basically, we are the Dutch Cloud Meetup, and the Dutch Cloud Meetup couldn't not be there without our sponsors. So let me first let you see our sponsors we have. So we have Peterbit, SPS Continuïteit, Intermex, Ibis, and 350 as well. So that basically brings me to the session we will be doing today. But I also have to tell you about the session and where it's live at this moment. So we have it live streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Twitter. So if you have any questions during the session, just drop them into the comment box or drop them in a tweet towards me or the Dutch Cloud Meetup, and we will try to answer those questions you have during the session or otherwise after the session that we have for today. So that basically brings me to the real session. I find your lack of Azure Governance disturbing by Tiago, so let me also invite Tiago to the stream as well. Hi, Tiago. How are you doing?
Hello, all good, and just
Oh, you're still there?
just here, and I think I was just hearing yourself in the background in one of my devices that I'm monitoring our session. Sorry about that. Wasn't supposed to have sound. I was like, what? But no, but basically, yeah, just living the life here. I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal, so today's not just looking at the window, not the best sunny day, but 2 days ago was like so good that I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to work today, from a nice bar in the beach or something like that. Unfortunately,
It was around
I had
20 degrees there, right?
yeah, it was like 20-ish degrees. We didn't have that good weather like some parts of Spain had.
Yeah.
But we had some part. It was like you know very sunny, very good weather. So that's the big advantage of living here in South Europe, and we're far away from everything in Europe. Okay, we're just in one of the points of Europe, right? But that's the advantage, is a little bit the weather. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You're excited to start?
Always excited to start, and it's even better when we're talking about Azure governance and the importance that has for all the organizations out there that are still not working with it
Yeah,
in the proper way. Let's just say that.
I can imagine. So let me just bring in your screen, and then
Yeah.
it's up to you.
Okay, so thank you very much. And basically, welcome everyone. This is the session that we're going to talk about, why Azure governance is, so important, and, why and how can you implement this. But just doing here a very small presentation about myself. My name is Tiago. I work as an independent contractor. And what I do is I basically work as a cloud architect and advisor. And I've been having a huge focus on, designing applications, architecting solutions to bring it to Azure Cloud Native, and also lately a lot of stuff around governance and how governance can really be so important for organizations out there. So I have been doing lots of work in this area too. I'm also a trainer, so I'm in the classroom, virtually, in person. You know, changing careers, I hope, engaging people in Azure, and also helping them getting certified. And I'm an author also on LinkedIn. You can find, some of my courses there. And I usually speak from, like the meetup, like we are doing here today, ranging to, like Microsoft Ignite, Build, and some other conferences out there. And then I'm an MVP for Azure and MCT and a bunch of other things that I already told you. I'm from Lisbon, Portugal. And if you want to follow me, you can just go on follow.tiagocosta.com, and you can find all my social networks there. But what are we going to talk about today? So today we're going to talk about what is the status of the cloud today. We're going to just make a reference about CAF and WAF. I had to make decisions, to be honest, and I wanted to talk about the governance. Governance is a part, of CAF, and I'll explain what CAF is, Cloud Adoption Framework, by the way. Um, and I just had to make choices. So look, I only have like one slide to explain what they are. I'm not focusing our session here today on that. Then subscription management groups, policies, and then a little bit, just a sparkling little bit about cost management and how important it is cost management. But let's just go. Let's talk about what is the cloud today. The cloud today, it's a very complex ecosystem. We don't longer just run that VM for that department to run something, or that website just to for that department or something else. No, we run, in some organizations, okay, we run millions of cloud resources. Um, and so it is really needed, something that can organize this in some structured way. Also, it's a multi-cloud environment. So lots of organizations, especially enterprises, they don't have just one cloud, just Azure, just AWS, just GCP. They usually run a mix, all something like that. And I just put those three big names there. But look, of course, we could put some more logos there. There are plenty of other amazing cloud providers out there, some more niche, others more, general. But I just chose those three because are the three big ones. Then we talk about, that projects are no longer just that VM across that just business unit. No, it's across the whole organization. That's why we have, thousands, millions of cloud resources. So with this, it is really, really important to understand a little bit what are the cloud management capabilities. And when we talk about this, I always like to show a little bit this diagram that we have here, where we talk a little bit about, security. We'd like security management, understanding who has permissions for what, um, enabling some of the cool features that we can have with Azure Active Directory, with Key Vault, and a bunch of other security mechanisms out there like Sentinel, etc. Then protect. So basically data protection, we talk about backing up, we talk about disaster recovery, we also talk about monitoring, and we also talk about configuration management. We like DevOps best practices, update management, automation, scripting. So basically all of that. That's super important. But today we're here to focus on governance. And when we come on governance, there's like two big topics there that comes with governance, which is policy management and cost management. And that's, our focus today here is, exactly that. So when we talk about governance, there you go, policy-based management, cost optimization, but also resource visibility. Understand how can we find resources, who has rights for what. So basically all of that. And also let's not forget about what about subscription governance. Because if you don't have a subscription governance too, you're just doing it wrong, basically. Okay, you don't give a subscription to your to your internal clients just because. There must be a very valid reason why we're going to create a new subscription, why we're going to give that subscription to someone. But we're going to cover that in just a minute. So let's take cat out of here. Cloud adoption framework, well architected framework. Look, they're pretty great, and I have maybe in the future we can do a session just about this topic. This is like a super important topic, but we don't have the time today, so I just want to roughly just explain what they are very, very quickly. Cloud adoption framework, okay, enables cloud architects basically to get people to adopt Azure. How? Well, adopt Azure as in the best possible way, following best practices that someone already had the issue, someone already had the challenge of implementing this, and Microsoft created the adoption framework, just to document all that best practices, understanding what kind of documentation you should create a set of tools to help you adopt Azure, adopt cloud in the organization, in your clients' organization, you name it. And then, of course, help your organization to align the business with a technical strategy, which sometimes we know, they probably are not exactly the same, but we need to, have those two align. And the adoption framework will help you on this. So a little bit high level, and okay, we have basically a series of phases here, like defining a strategy, then we plan, then we're ready to, just create some landing zones, design some stuff, and then we're ready to adopt. Within all this, there's like three areas. There's security, management, and governance that are always present and should always be present on this. Just, very quickly about CAF. What about well-architected framework? Well, architected framework is what we call a set of guide nets, okay, that we can use to adopt certain services. So we always need to think about cost optimization, managing the cost to maximize the value that we can deliver by using, that workload in the way that we are using. Also think about operational excellence, because, that's the field where we're going to make sure that this is running as, the most time that we can have. Efficiency, okay, how the system will adapt to changes in load. Usually, when we have starting to get more and more load, will we have auto scaling configured for this? How is the behavior of this? Thinking about all that part. Reliability, it's the ability of a system to recover when it fails, because look, it will fail. We just don't know when it will fail. And then what we have is about security, also, a very important part, which is, let's think about how we as an organization are going to use this specific service and how are you going to secure it. Usually this involves, lots of meetings with the security team, building some workshops to explain what the service is, how does it work, so that, usually the security team might not be yet very much cloud ready. So you need to do those workshops so that they understand a little bit better how things work. Those are two, but let's get started with a real presentation here. Subscription management. So what is that we need to cover when we cover subscription management? So what is an Azure subscription? Usually I like this description about, what is. It's a logical unit of Azure services linked to an Azure account. So there's an Azure account that usually we call it a billing account. That billing account can have several subscriptions. And then, this subscription that we have here is going to be linked with that. It's also something that we use as a security boundary. So it's a security scope. So when you're doing role-based access control, and you can say, hey, this user, let's imagine, will have a certain role in this scope. The scope could be a subscription. There are more, but subscription can be one of those scopes. Then what we have is also that, it's connected to a single Azure Active Directory tenant. So we have a tenant, okay? Then we have our subscription. And then this subscription is connected with just that Azure AD tenant that we have over there. But that Azure AD tenant, can have subscription 2 and subscription 3, 4, 5, whatever. Got it? So an Azure AD tenant is normal to have a bunch of subscriptions. So that's pretty common, pretty normal to have. That tenant, imagine, is, mycompany.com. It's the custom domain that I added for that. And then I will have my users, my app registrations, all my service principals that then, we can give to our back authorization to do some stuff within those subscriptions. Then we have tons of subscriptions. That's normal. In some organizations, we have hundreds of different subscriptions. And manage those subscriptions at scale, like hundreds, it's not easy. It's a scope for security. It's also a scope for billing. Look, it could be, it is really a pain, to be totally honest. This is where management groups can help you do a lot of cool stuff. And with management groups, basically they provide a level above the subscriptions. So what happens is, yeah, I have my subscription, my hundreds of subscriptions, and then I can create, as you can see here, in my screen now, I can create this hierarchy, this tree that I have here of management groups. And yes, so there is a management group that can contain other management groups and can contain subscriptions. In here, so as you can see, I have. Let me just take this. I have here, my tenant root group. Then he has another management group. Then this management group has four management groups, as you can see here. And then some of them, they still have other stuff that then this has a subscription. And then this subscription will have some, you know, resources there. And then this other subscription will have some other resources on this. So why do we do this? Well, first of all, we do this so that now we can have those subscriptions grouped it in some way. So this is great for cost reporting, and we will see this when we talk about cost management, and also to target policies. We're also going to see this when we talk about Azure policies. So with Azure policies, I can just create an Azure policy. Then I need to assign that policy to a scope. That scope, can be a management group. Got it? So imagine I create a naming, like, I don't know, like a policy for naming conventions. So yeah, sure, if I apply it somewhere in here on the top, that means that all my subscriptions within that tenant that I will have, that Azure AD tenant, will need to follow that naming convention. So that could be an amazing thing for us to have. So just a catch here. If we have something like here, like more of a regional thing, maybe we can have like imagine here, for example, a management group called like Netherlands, and then within the Netherlands we have all the subscriptions from the Netherlands branch that we might have in our example organization. So that's just an example here. So pretty cool stuff that we can have with this that will help us a lot. What are the benefits of this? Well, create the logical representation of your organization, but be careful with something, which is, as we all know, organizations, they change, they adapt business wise. So it's very common from time to time we get like from management, like a note like, hey, we're going through a reorg. And I know everyone is afraid of reorgs because sometimes means some people are let go. Uh, but companies, they need to adapt to new realities because the market shifts, changes, etc. And companies that don't change, they will suffer more in the end. So yeah. So reorgs is a reality. We need to create a structure of management groups that usually just represents logically your organization, but it's also something that you can change, because your company, if they do a reorg, maybe you're going to need to change this. Okay. And so maybe that's something that you always need to consider when you're designing this, which is not easy, to be totally honest. Is it's full of compromises sometimes, but yeah, it is something that we need to consider and we need to implement that way. Then, like I said, we can apply policies at the management group level, and we can do a governance basically over subscription. So we don't need to, do stuff sub by sub. We can just do it by a group of subscriptions. That is the management group. Okay, so that's a big advantage. So with this, with all help of our friends here, let's just do a demo now, okay, which is just reviewing, Azure management groups. And with this, by the way, I have, to be totally honest with you, I have zero stuff ready. So just bear with me. I never prepare anything, just on purpose, so that we can really see the real thing. And so let's go for management groups. This is my, yeah, I mean the right one. This is my training environment, my demo environment that I have. And as you can see, if I go to management groups, so you can see here that what I have here is I have this tenant root group. Then I have this AZ Contoso root. By the way, AZ Contoso is my demo company. It's the company that I use as my demo company. And if we scroll down, as you can see here, so I can see here some, some branches, then I have here corp. Oh, let's go for branches. And then in branches, let's go here, Europe. And in Europe, you have, 3 subscriptions. So I get here to 3 subscriptions, and there you go. You can see the 3 subscriptions that I have here, and I have the branch Netherlands. So we gave a subscription to the Netherlands branch, Portugal, and the UK. And then we have here Germany. Germany has their own, management group inside because, Germany got so big in our company that they don't have just one subscription, they have a bunch of them. So, we just created a branch, a management group for that branch. Then you tell me, hey, what about the Netherlands, Tiago? We're also growing a lot like crazy, so we need more subscriptions. Maybe we need the same thing. Sure, let's just do that. So if you go on Europe, so you need to be in this one, and you just say, hey, I want to create, and this will create another, management group. And, you just need to give here a code for this, an ID. And then, hey, what is the management group name for this? And I'll just say, hey, Netherlands. And I'll just submit this. So I'm creating, that management group. And that management group is going to be a child of Europe. So it will be under Europe. You can change this because, Germany here. If I want, I could just click here. I could just say, hey, move. And I could just move this, to one of the other ones. So that's something that you can always do. After this is done, so there you go. I already have Netherlands here. So branches, Europe, and Netherlands. There you go. It's here. So it has nothing inside. So what I can do is I can go here to the Netherlands, subscription. And now I just say, hey, move this. And when I move this, I just need to say, yay, Netherlands. So this now, that subscription is going to be moved into the Netherlands. And, basically in terms of creating management groups, and doing this is the stuff that we can do. I also have, a special management group here called new subscriptions. This one, new subscriptions, is what? If I go under settings, you can say, hey, this is the default management group for new subscriptions. So I always create one here, okay, for that. So that this one that I have here, I have it so locked down that you can't do anything on this. You can't create anything. You can't, literally do anything on the subscriptions that are under that management group. And then you might ask, why is that? Well, if you're using enterprise agreement, when you're creating new subscriptions, they will just show up at the tenant root group level here. What happens with this is, you'll just get the stuff that is in here. People can start to create stuff that, we don't want them to create things on those regions, for example, or using those services or whatever. So only and then after, when we move the subscription like I did to the specific management group where that sub must be, is that, they will have the proper policies applied, the proper RBAC and all of that. So just in case that, someone doesn't do some basic mistakes, this is a way to do it, is we just put the stuff here in the, in the subscriptions, and, there you go. That's basically, that's done. So it will be blocked down. Only when you really move it is that you can create stuff on that. So that's a great, a good, it's just a best practice, okay, for this. So there you go. So that's management groups in a nutshell. Then what? Then, one of the coolest things that we have, that I'm a really, but really big fan, which is what? Which is basically Azure policies. So let's go for Azure policies. So what are Azure policies? Azure policies you can create, you can assign, and you can manage your policies. Policies, they can run evaluations, they can scan for services that are not according with the policy, so what we call non-compliant resources. So we can enforce, we can apply policies at scale, we can use remediation with this, and we have here some examples of things that we can use this for. Stuff like hey, allowed locations. So that's an example. So you can block things so that only certain locations, because imagine you have a data residency concern somewhere that they tell you that, hey, this is great, but Tiago, you can only use West Europe, because we're a Dutch company and we have some governmental rules that block us from using any other region. Sure, okay, well, let's take care of that. um Allowed resource types, allowed virtual machine SKUs. That's, for example, that's a cool one. The SKUs. I'm sure everyone here reads the news about those very large virtual machines that Microsoft has. Like, they have hundreds of CPUs and terabytes of RAM. Now, let me be honest with you. Okay, who uses that? It's a very niche market that needs those very, very large virtual machines. For sure, probably you don't have rights to create them, because you have to open a ticket, and you need to open a ticket, ask for permission from Microsoft, to use those, etc. But there are others that are still big that probably you can create them. And let's be honest, do you need them? That's the question. Most of the times the answer is no. Yeah, we don't need those. So block them. Don't let, you know, um, your users to be able to create, your cloud engineers to create, things with that size, because probably just doesn't make sense. This is also a great way, to also to control the costs, because they're going just to create a few sizes that you pre-approve for this. Requiring tags. I'm a huge tag freak, to be honest. I tag everything, so make sure you have the right tags in place, so that you can then enhance things with, because you have everything tagged. Enable backup on virtual machine. Just another example. So let's go and let's see this in action. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create a resource. So let me create here a resource, and let's create what? Let's create a storage account. Let's try to create a storage account. So storage account. Then I'll just go here and I'll try to create a storage account. Create storage account. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to create a storage account in East US. So let's just say here SD, and then just some numbers to make it unique. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose here this AZ Contoso UK region. And let's see what happens. And what's going to happen is this is not going to be allowed. It's already giving me the error here, because I have a policy that is assigned to the scope of this subscription, the AZ Contoso UK. And what it's doing, it just says that, hey, if you want to deploy something in here, this needs to be, within the UK. And that's it. So this is what happens. It just shows you this here. See, policy enforcement value does not matter, require resource. This is the name of the storage account they're trying to create. So that one over there. The value East US was denied, because this policy, it actually just denies, just denies that. So that's pretty cool stuff that we have here. And, if you try to review this, just doesn't, you can't create this because it doesn't let you create. This is using the Azure portal. And then you might ask, hey, what about if I just run an Azure CLI command? Or, if I ARM template, Bicep, Terraform, doesn't matter. This works in the resource management layer. So from where you come, it really doesn't matter. This will be in place always. How do I did this? So let's do the same thing or similar, but now let's do it for the subscription that I have, the Netherlands subscription, and force this to be within the Netherlands. So what we need to do first, we need to go to policies. Let's go to policies. Then in my case, because there is a built-in Azure policy that already does this, so I don't need to build my own policy definition, but I can go to definitions and I can find, this. I can try to find this policy over there. We have thousands of Azure policies that are built in, and if they are still not do what you want, you can always build your own. And then after this, I will find it. I will do a policy assignment. I don't know why this today is taking ages to load. Maybe it's time for me for my water. So there you go. So I already have here, you can see here some custom ones and some built-in ones. And you can see this is like, really lots of them. So filter by name. I already know the name, so it's easy for me to find stuff, You just go and just search allowed locations. So you have to be careful for resource groups, or this one, this is for services, okay? So for resources. So I'll go with this. Hey, my policy definition. By the way, policies definitions, they are open sourced. So you can see the code. This is just JSON. It's really easy to read and to understand. So you can see here the definition. So as I told you, this is totally open sourced. So it's in here. You can just, just have a look and understand the policy. The policy rule, what it does, which is this part here. Okay, so what it does is really simple. It just checks if the location is in a list of allowed locations, which is a parameter. So when you are assigning this, you need to provide values, okay, for that parameter. And then, if it's not a B2C directory, and then if that is the case, it will, allow you to create, if it is in the list of allowed locations here. If not, the effect in this case, it's a deny. There are more. We're going to cover them in a minute. But in this case, this is just a deny. So you're not going to be allowed, to basically to create this. So cool stuff, that we have with this. So I want to assign. So you're on the top, as you can see, there's this assign button there. Let's click on that one. And after you click on that one, you need to select here the scope. And the scope could be a management group, can be a subscription, or a resource group. In my case, as you can imagine, so I could just select there the management group Netherlands, because that's where we transfer. We moved our subscription, or in my case, I could just go here and I could just also choose, here the subscription. So, cool stuff that I have with this. So just select this one here. And then, what is the assignment name? Don't leave the default one. I'm really asking very nicely, pretty please. Okay, because you can't even imagine the number of assignment names that I have in customers. That is exactly that. And then I have I don't know, like 40 allowed location assignments. And I'm like, good for you. Just proper name stuff. So in my example, I'll just change this to something like this: allowed locations NL, so that I know. Assigned by Tiago. Yeah, that's great. Let's create. Sorry, I forgot the parameters, of course. So let me just choose West Europe, okay, which is in the Netherlands, as you probably all know. And there you go. Okay. So this is done. So my assignment now, it is done. Now, look, this usually takes, like they say here, around 30 minutes to take effect. We're not going to wait 30 minutes, okay? But we can check this, because sometimes it doesn't take that long, okay? The UI in the Azure portal might not show like it did before, but when you're going to review, it will not allow you to create this. So we have that. So let's just go here. Let's choose Netherlands. We need to create a new resource group. So RG demo, and then, ST, and then some numbers. Oh, and it's already there. See here? So, see, even it was fast. So there you go. So if I change this, of course, to West Europe, Ta-da! And if I click review, I'm not going to actually create this, but you're going to see that the create button on the bottom left, it's blue. Blue is good, means that yeah, we can just hit that create button, and this will create. I'm not, because I already have enough storage accounts in my training directory here. So what can we do more in policy? So in policy, we also have this compliance here. So this area here, this is what we call the compliance dashboard. And if you click on this, you can see if you're compliant or not compliant per, you know, policy assignment. So you can see here all the assignments in this first column. And then you can see here, oh, compliant, compliant, compliant. And then, of course, I have a bunch of them that are non-compliant. And for example, this one here, allowed locations Europe. So I have 6 out of 7 that are compliant. So I'll click here, and it will tell me that, hey, this resource is non-compliant. So we have 6 that are compliant. Okay, I don't need to see those. That's fine. If you want, you can always see them, but you don't need that. And what I can see is this non-compliant here. If you want, you can just change here compliant, and you can just see the compliant resources. But yeah, the default experience is checking, of course, the non-compliant. And I look at this, and this is deployed to East US, and that's not what we want with this. I look at this, and now I need to make changes. Now it's up to you to decide how you want to fix this. Of course, in this case, it's a service that you cannot change the region. This is a proximity placement group. And if it's in the US, it needs to live in the US. So what you can do with this is you can, maybe move it, to another place if that makes sense. Okay. So now it's depends a lot. So let's not enter how to fix this, because, the answer could be very long and complex. There's a lot of depend. It's the traditional, consultant answer, but in this case, clearly, it's what it is. Sometimes we might want to create an exemption. So if that is the case, you can create an exemption here, and this year, blah blah blah, and then you can just create an exemption for for something that happened. So that's fine. You can also click here and just creating an exemption for for this here. You just need to give it a name, waiver. You need to just provide some explanation so that everything gets documented. Why did you did that? Because that's the easy fix. When stuff is non-compliant, you just create exemptions, and we have 100% compliance when it comes to this dashboard here, and you only have 54. 54, to be totally honest, it's not bad. Okay, when I implement all the policies for organizations, usually I can guarantee you that this number is way lower. And then it's a little bit of work, finding sometimes those quick wins to, get to a value that we're a little bit more comfortable. But then there's some stuff that might take you some time, to be totally honest, okay, to fix and to make sure that, can be, can be near 100% here. So what can we do more with policies? Let's just check here some more, some more slides with this. So just a recap, we have policy definitions, we have initiative definitions, and then we have the assignment. So policy is what we saw. I created what I can create my own policies if you want. Okay, that's easy. Then we have to create those policies. You can see here. We'll get back to that slide in just a moment. Okay, you can see here. Establish the conventions for resources, describe resource compliance conditions. They're JSON based. This is just just an example of a policy, but we saw one. The important part usually is we have here some properties, we have the parameters there, and then we have the policy rule in here, and we have the effect. Okay, that effect there is really important because we can have several types of effects, as you can see, not just deny. Deny, it's what I showed you. Doesn't let you doesn't let you create more stuff. If we're talking about, let's just say, audit, for example, well, what the audit will do is it will just, show on the compliance dashboard, but you can still create stuff that is outside the allowed regions and things like that. Maybe that's enough for you. Okay. So then we have other stuff like append. For example, I use append a lot when I'm doing tags, which is if you don't provide me a tag with a value, a specific name of a tag, a key, like environment, for example, if you don't provide me that, well, I will put something there, just a default environment that we created. We need to use this append because it will create your resource, but it will append something on that. And then look, we have a bunch of other things in there. So with all this, let's get back here to this slide where we cover initiatives. So what is the idea of initiatives? In a nutshell, because it's a little bit more, but with initiatives, sometimes we want to have 4, 5, 10 policies being assigned at the same time. So you can create and group them as an initiative. I will just give you an example. In one of my customers, I have a development team that they want. It's really them asking, by the way. They really want to be very locked down on what the stuff that they can do. So, they are having policies for virtual machine SKUs, the SKUs of storage accounts, the services that they can use. They can only use a certain level of services, the regions, and some stuff more. In total, they have 14 policy assignments into that stuff. Okay. So, that scope, which is like 2 or 3 resource groups that they have. What happens is we just create an initiative for that. Okay. And then we just assign that to them, because we try to generalize this a little bit, with with initiatives, so that other development teams, when we onboard them into this, we can just try to reuse the same initiatives. Okay, so just with parameters, then we can play around with that, and then let me just go back, and then we have the assignment. So like I said here, when we do the policy assignment, again, this is also JSON based, and we have to determine this definition will be assigned in this, in this scope. And when we say scope, this is the scopes. A management group, it can be there a subscription, okay, one of those there, or it can be a specific resource group. It's up to you. For example, in the case of that development team, we did this per resource group because we have a subscription that is kind of a sandbox for people, to play around and do some R&D and things like that. That is pretty open, to be totally honest, in terms of the stuff that they can create, because it's for R&D, so research and development. It's not even to create development environments. Okay, it's purely R&D. And so what we did is, because they wanted to be locked down, so that because they were afraid of clicking in the wrong button and having a huge expense on the company, and because they didn't know how stuff works, etc. So we did that per resource group. Okay, and then there's other people using the subscription that are not so limited. So they have a little bit more freedom, because they are they don't have those policies enabled. They have others. Okay, so we can apply this at the management group level, at the subscription, or at the at the resource group. I love this part now, which is talking about policies and RBAC. So RBAC is, when you just say, hey, Tiago can be, let's just say, a reader in this scope. Scope for RBAC can be all the scopes that we saw on the policies plus individual resources. But then we have policy, and then how the two of them, they work together. So what happens is this. Imagine that we have an Azure administrator. He wants to deploy a cloud resource. Then what happens is, our bot will kick in and we'll ask, hey, do you have the necessary rights for this? And let's imagine you do not. So you do not, the cloud resource, it's not created, you get a deny message. Plain and easy, right? Nothing, I think it's obvious. What about, if he has the rights? So if he has the rights, it's then is that Azure policy will kick in. Okay, so he already has the rights to do this. So Azure policy, oh, okay. So now let me see, all the properties that you're deploying in here. Like you're trying to deploy what resource? You're trying to deploy in what properties, like location, what's the SKU that you're deploying, all of that. And let me see if I have a restricting policy defined for this scope where you're trying to deploy this. And then if there is, and you're not according with this, well, if it is a deny, of course, policy, your stuff is denied. If not, it's only then is that this is created. So it doesn't matter who you are. If there is a policy denying something, it will be denied. And you saw that happening. My user is an administrator. I have the highest privilege existing in Azure on that subscription, on the AZ Contoso Netherlands. I was even the one that created a policy, and I was still denied of creating that storage account in that scope. So it really doesn't matter who you are. You're always going to be denied. So with this, we got to this part, which is what are my top 5 policies? Something that sometimes people ask me. Allowed locations, because we have data residency concerns. So sure, it's an easy one. VM SKUs for saving money, and even for saving money again. Okay, but I will leave this second part for the next part, which is cost management. And I have an explanation why this is for saving money. I think it's obvious because if you don't let people create those big machines, you're already saving money. And then there's a second saving money with this. That's the one that I will let for the next part. But just give me a minute. Then to enforce naming conventions, if this is something that you're into, enforce tags, okay, and for allowing certain services. So definitely this is my my top 5 policies for this. Then we get to cost management, and I don't know if there are some questions. You can always make questions, by the way. Okay, just feel free to just to send the questions. Happy to see them here and answer to those questions. Okay. So what do we have here? So what we have here is, the obvious tools. And we have stuff like the pricing calculator. We have stuff like Azure Migrate, the database migration service, all the migration services. They always give you an estimation. Hey, yeah, you're going to migrate this, and this is how much it's going to cost you. The calculator, you go on the website, just fill in, some forms. Say, this will cost you this. That's the obvious tools to understand how much money you're going to pay for certain services. Create several scenarios, compare, and see that. But I like to go further. And when we talk about cost management, I think there is different approaches to cost. If I'm an IT executive, and I have my work the great part of my work nowadays is to deal with C-levels. And one of the things that I love is, and I try to explain to them, is don't see the cost that you're going to pay and compare that, just with on-prem, because first of all, it's really hard to compare with on-prem because, to be totally honest, you probably don't have, accounting that is precise enough to give you exactly how much money you're paying for running a certain workload, because it's very rare to find companies that have that precision. And of course, look, see this as all the power of the cloud and the flexibility in terms of the business that this will allow you that on-prem doesn't allow you. And that's a big benefit that you have as an organization, because you're be going to be more agile in making changes on your stuff, deploying faster, things like that. That's something that it does. We don't have a price tag associated with that, but that's a major advantage versus organizations that do not have that. So IT executives, they always see this as, oh, what's the return on the investment? It doesn't matter. Does it cost 2 million? There is a return. Do we have the cash flow? Can we make the investment? Let's go. Because there is a return on the investment. That's their big thing. If we're talking about a financial team, the financial team, they need to improve cloud spending. They want to decrease the most that they can, and they need to know exactly when they need the money to pay. So we really need, and they do a very hard job too, like we do. They need to, predict that the company will have income for the expenses that are coming, right? If you say it is, it's not an easy job for sure, right? So, but they always need this, and of course, we need to stick to the budget that we are having. Uh, you know, Having an increase of the budget, like imagine, sorry, having a budget of, let's just say, 100, and then you spend 200. It's going to be really mad for them. They will be super mad with you. Not that the company can't afford, not that, oh, there's a return on the investment. No, but they were not expecting that bill. So always align with them too, because if you know this was going to increase the cost, you always need to align with them. And then project teams, project teams are more niche on their project. They don't care about the rest. And sometimes they're just creating stuff that already exists in a shared services model, but they don't know. So they want to create their own, they want to control their stuff, but maybe they don't need, maybe they need to use what already exists within the organization. Okay, then how do we control costs? How do you manage costs? First, you know, resource tags. Let's tag stuff like, this is a key value pair or name pair value pair. Okay, they're not just for billing, they're for many other things, but very useful for when it comes to building. And the idea is to create a taxonomy for this. So let's just say owner John, department Martin, cost center, something. And if you do something like this, oh, that's going to be like really cool, because now we can make sure that we can query all the cost database, saying, hey, I want to understand how much the cost center X cost. So like cost center 1 to 3, 4 cost for this period of time. And then if you have other stuff like, oh, environment, and other stuff that you can put in here, you could just say, hey, how much did it cost me? 1 to 3, the cost center for development environments. Or, we just have like workload X. So I just want to know how much cost workload X. And workload X could range from different, cost centers. It could range from different environments, and you get like an overall cost of that. And why is this important? This is the kind of data that you have. And yeah, you can't see it. It's on purpose. That's exactly what I want to prove. Is this is so detailed that you need to get tools, okay? And you need the help of some tools to analyze this. And this is where we have a bunch of tools like the Azure Cost Management, which is an internal tool of the Azure portal. There's a building API, which is like awesome. And if you have like some, developer experience, if not, just include some dabs on this. It's not hard to get to that billing API. It is massively cool, the stuff that we can do with this. So check it out. Power BI, an amazing tool for analyzing data, dashboarding, basically all of that. And it comes with a connector for billing in Azure, for Azure billing. So you just go there, get data, and then under Azure there is a connector for the billing API. So you don't even need to code anything. So, and then you can build dashboards, and you can find some dashboards. This is just me. Just go on the internet and type, Power BI dashboards for cost management. There are some that the community already built, and you can just use those. And of course, third-party products. I never like to talk about third-party products in my presentations, um, but because I really want to remain like super independent and not leading people to use service A, B, or C. But generically speaking, I think there's no harm doing this. There's a plenty of them out there. They're pretty good, to be honest. Okay, just check the market, check one that you feel fits your needs. Maybe that will be interesting for you. Okay, but they cost money. Okay, to be totally honest. So maybe if we could just live with something that you already have, because you can't afford those third-party products, but at least building something. And now the big part of this: how can you help you save some money? There's plenty of things. Like, of course, Azure reservations is a great thing. If you know you're going to need that workload for X number of years, okay, stuff like that, you can always go for, you know, the cost saving approach. And if you go for the cost reservation, the Azure reservations approach, which is you say, I want to use this VM, let's just say, for 3 years, they are going to give you a discounted price on that. This is not just for virtual machines, app services, storage, disks, databases, Kubernetes, OpenShift. I don't know. Plenty of things that can benefit, from this. If you already have licenses on-prem and you're migrating those workloads into Azure, you can also maybe benefit from the Azure hybrid benefits. Check if your licensing contract has that. It's called hybrid benefits from the software assurance. Azure credits, sometimes Microsoft just gives some Azure credits for, certain customers, especially when you're getting started with Azure, so that you can try something, etc. So, just check that out. And of course, policies. And where does policies can help you save money? Well, we have the basic stuff, like for sure, I can save money by not having, like I said, those virtual machines SKUs, not allowing certain services, because then sometimes, believe me, there are people that they just create services and then they forget that the services are there, and things like and things like that. And then there is also a great thing with those virtual machine SKUs too. That's that second thing that I was telling you that I was going to tell you, which is this: if you limit the number of SKUs that you allow for sizes for virtual machines and for other services, but this is more for virtual machines, then you can make a better use of your Azure reservations. Because if you only have, imagine, let's exaggerate here, okay? Only one size available, that's the only size that you need to put on Azure reservations. Of course, you don't have just one size. You will have more, but imagine that you just define like 8 or 9, 10 sizes. Sure, that's probably enough. And then you can, just create reservations on those sizes, because for sure you're going to have tons of virtual machines on those sizes. Okay? That doesn't happen if we're talking about having all the sizes available, because you will have a huge distribution about VM sizes. And this is one of the things that I do in customers is I just check what are the SKU distribution, and sometimes the SKU distribution is huge. So, doing reservations there, it's always very, very hard, because they're not going to have a huge benefit that they could have. So trying to standardize some of the sizes is always, something that is needed over there. And then, some more cost optimizations that we can do on this: monitor virtual machines, monitor your compute. You can't even imagine the number of customers were already found tons of virtual machines that they were not doing anything, especially like old development environments, old non-productive environments, etc. Consider reserved instances, spot instances, it's another one. Consider running workloads in different regions. So sometimes if you move stuff from one region to the other, you can save money. Of course, if you can, if it makes sense, there's a lot of ifs in that approach. and use test and dev and test subscriptions. Sometimes your subscriptions that you have a dev and test version, which it's much cheaper because you don't pay license on those. Of course, like in the name says, it's only for dev and test, but still, sure. If we have like tons of SQL servers, some tons of Windows, you can always also save a lot of money by moving your development environments to proper dev and test subscriptions. And then something that I also talk about, some session key takeaways from this. uh I always like to give you something to take away. Create a naming convention. I think it's important to have a naming convention so that you know what you call things. um Implement an Azure policy to enforce tags. Start your Azure governance approach. Find dev and non-used virtual machines, and then of course optimize your Azure costs with like reserved instances, and of course also with spot instances. I think if you do this, very quickly, it's just going to save some money. Very quickly, you're going to have a better governed um, Azure environment. Of course, there is more. For sure, there is more. There is tons more, but I'll be happy to help you on that. So just ping me a message if you need help on that. I'll be more than okay and give you some extra tips and help you on your governance approach, because I really think this is something that it is really needed for you to step up, okay, and build a very good approach to Azure. And so thank you very much. My name is Tiago, and this is how you can implement Azure governance, okay. And don't forget to follow me on follow.tiagocosta.com. It will always be a pleasure, to have you as a follower. And I usually share tons of stuff about Azure. So yeah, if you want to know more about Azure, it will be a great, great pleasure to have you there.
Thank you, Tiago. It was a really great session. I really loved your session takeaways and also your top 5 policies. So you see a lot of policies going around with customers as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I
definitely.
still have a question. Maybe
Sure.
something you have encountered with your customers as well. How do you handle customers with multiple tenants?
Oh, yeah. So that's a good one. I didn't have that scenario in my presentation. So for those, we really need to look for, does it make sense to have all those tenants? Because sometimes it does. I have a customer where we have that. It doesn't make any sense to have that many subscriptions, tenants. Sorry, but business wise, they have the need. Because they have. I'll just tell you, they have one tenant per country. Okay. And why do they have that? And you're like, that doesn't make any sense anymore, Tiago. Sure, but they want to ditch a country if they need. Okay. So
Mhm.
business wise, if they want to, imagine there's a country, the country is not performing well, or for political reasons, whatever, they need to have a very, very good capacity to just take that country out of the company, sell the company, that local branch to someone, and then that other people can just deal with this without having that many costs on this. There's always dependencies. We already had that. So Venezuela a couple of years ago, like I don't know, like before the pandemic, we had to ditch it. Uh, they just removed the country, and it was super messy because there's always dependencies on things, but they do that. In this case, is what we do is we have to do a governance approach per tenant. There is not that much that we can do. The only thing that I did for other customers that they have like more they have like a shared services company, then they have 10 companies and each company is a tenant. And what we create is through DevOps, Azure DevOps. We created is the deployment of those policies that we have, and then the policy assignment go to that tenant, so that we have this better approach, more build something on top of the management groups, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not something that exists. It's something that you have to create your own stuff for that. The way that we found was with Azure DevOps. Probably there are others. Okay, not going to discuss that. Probably there are, but we did this with DevOps so that we can automate distribution of policies and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we have done so as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also looked into third party tools, but what we mainly see is they do not use cloud native capabilities of the Azure platform. So, for example, if you have specific regulations and you want to apply that to the platform, you could in the Azure platform you could use policies. In AWS, you could use something different, but there are, for as far as we know, no cloud native tools that do that kind of thing towards the Azure platform. Then,
Yeah, maybe we need to develop one.
yeah, I would love to develop one. It's a lot of work, but I think that would really help the investment on platform as well for Azure.
No, no, yeah, and I think the governance part will grow more and more,
Yeah,
because companies now are in a point that, whoa, my God, we have so many resources here, we can't manage this. It's all so messed up,
yeah,
and then Tiago gets there. you know, you get there to help them, with that. And to be totally honest, I think having some tooling will definitely help those companies that they don't have the capacity, they don't know who to hire, they don't have the knowledge on how to implement things. And so having this will be able to, it will be great to have
yeah,
something like that. I personally don't have the capacity, the time to build something like that, but happy to help who will have that, with my experience and the needs from the market. I'll be there. Okay, totally. Just don't have the capacity to just be coding, all that, like you said, and very well. It will be a lot of work. It'll be something that I think it'll be needed for a lot of organizations. And having, like, my dream is I already have some scripts, like this is like the bare minimal on governance,
yeah,
and having this and just run this in some customers that are smaller, they can't afford that many hours of consulting. So having at least their bare minimal, already have like some, guide net, like this is the basic stuff, and let's implement this at least, and
yeah.
then
Yeah,
from
that
from
already
here
helps.
you do the rest.
Yeah, you can better do something than totally nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks again for doing your session. Hope to have you here again sometime as well.
Yeah.
Um, that leaves me just for the closing note for everyone that's still on the stream. So we just want to make sure that we have another in-person session planned at Intermax at the 28th of March. Um, we will announce the second speaker as soon as possible, but we already have Marijn van Wijngaarden available for that session. So I hope that you'll be there. It's in person, so you need to be in the Netherlands, of course. Um, just as a closing as well, again, our sponsors, Betabit, SPS, Intermax, 350, and Ibis. And that leaves me basically to our last slide for today, our CFP. If you have any interest in speaking, even if you are a first time speaker, that's no problem at all. Just let us know, fill in the CFP, and we will make sure that you get a slot in our online sessions, but that could also be a slot on the in person sessions as well, of course. So again, Tiago, thank you for being here. Everyone that's tuned in, thank you for being here as well. I hope to see you next time as well.
Yeah.
Bye.
It was a pleasure. Bye bye, everyone.